Hello everyone, my name is Bill Britton, and I'm doing my presentation on police misconduct and brutality and whether it's a problem in America. Here's some basic definitions for you. I'm not going to read them. I think you guys know what most of these mean, but I put them up there anyway just to clarify in case you didn't know the specifics of what police misconduct or police brutality actually was. Here's a slight introduction. As most of you know, police misconduct is now a topic of concern among most Americans. This is mostly due to the media taking any kind of story they can find on police brutality and just going with it. And it's getting them a lot of ratings, and I see why they're doing it, but at some point you have to take a look and understand that it is for ratings, and they're blowing these some of these cases up way out of proportion. Here's some general statistics. I don't really feel the need to read them to you. I think you guys can see it's a problem. Police misconduct is a problem. 6,600 officers are involved with incidents. This is only in 2010, but there is no more recent research that's been done that I could find. So what you're seeing is the most recent research available to me. So 6,600 officers, that's insane. And the fact that there was 247 total fatalities involved in 2010 as well, obviously that's something we need to address. Here's some statistics regarding actual amounts of force and police brutality cases. There was about 1,600 total officers involved. 57% of them were accused of using physical force that didn't involve a firearm. So basically they were using force like slamming, choking, hitting with objects, stuff like that. While only 15% of all of these cases was actually involved with a firearm. So not every case of police brutality is just involving a firearm, and I think that needs to be made clear because the media is just showing it as if firearms are the reason that this kind of stuff is happening. Here's some examples of some high-profile cases. I think everybody remembers the Freddie Gray case in Baltimore. He was arrested for possession of an illegal knife. Turns out it actually was legal later on. Apparently he had begged for medical assistance as they had repeatedly stopped the bus that was taking him to the police station. And when they finally arrived to the police station, he was unconscious and unable to talk. He eventually died of a spinal injury, and cases on some of those officers are still ongoing. Eric Garner, I think we remember him too. He was a pretty big one because all he was doing was selling loose cigarettes, and an officer jumped on his back and basically choked him to death, despite him screaming that he couldn't breathe. Here's some other types of misconduct, and both of them deal with sexual assault. The first case, Keith Walton, this is recent. This is from about a week ago. He was charged with sexually assaulting one of his fellow officers that he actually supervised. He tried to use his power as a way to make her do what he wanted, and obviously, as you can see, that didn't go very well for him, and now he's looking at charges for it. James Nichols and Luis Valenzuela, both in California, Los Angeles actually, they took it upon themselves to, over a period of a couple years, sexually assault 4 separate women. They were prostitutes. Well, at least one of them was a prostitute. The other 3, I believe, were as well. But they are still awaiting trial in that case. Here's some public perceptions of the police use of force from some research articles that I've looked at. This article was done about a study in Pennsylvania. Basically, what it stated was that 50% agreed the amount of force that police used was okay, and 50% didn't. And of the people that didn't, the majority of them were African Americans. So the other studies I have here will further explain on that, and will show, I think, a pretty noticeable trend. In this study, Thompson and Lee looked at the 2004 General Social Survey. They determined that African Americans were very very skeptical about any kind of force the officers were using. They didn't really want to see any force used at all. And in contrast, Caucasians were found to be much more supportive of any amount of force, regardless of how much force was actually applied. In these questions, some of the questions were even labeled as excessive amounts of force, and Caucasians said they were still okay with it because they feel like it helped with the case. This study was done by Matt Elliker. He also studied the social survey, but instead of just one specific year, he did it over a 10-year period. He found that Caucasians approved of any type of force with an 84.3% approval rating. That is insane, especially when you look at the fact that African Americans only agreed with 54% of force. So what you're seeing is 30% swing towards one side. And as I've stated, I think you guys can see the commonalities here between these surveys. The same stuff's being found, that African Americans simply do not trust the police or their amounts of force. And that is also backed up with this, due to the fact that this article was actually done for the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Justice Statistics. And they found that more blacks were pulled over and stopped than any other ethnicity, and that a smaller percentage of African Americans believe that the officers acted accordingly and they had reason to pull them over or stop them in these situations. Also, a key note here in this, white drivers were ticketed far less. They were also searched far less than any of the minority drivers. And I think that says something, and I think that's a problem, and it goes right along with what I've been saying this entire presentation. This study was done about where exactly is use of force happening and where is police misconduct happening. Smith and Holmes did this. They tried to prove their minority threat hypothesis, which essentially states that police target areas with a larger amount of minorities in them. So rundown communities, stuff like that on the outside of cities mostly. They combined their work with the U.S. Census to make sure that they were getting accurate results. And what they did find was that this is true. The police are using more force in areas where there's more minorities. Why? There's not really any explanation for it. It's just that's what's going on. I think that plays into a big part of why the media portrays it as like this big racially blown up thing, because at this point it's starting to get there. What I see here is this is a problem. First and foremost, Americans are panicking about it. It's not just African Americans. Caucasians are even joining alongside Black Lives Matter, which is a group that's attempting to end police discrimination through protest, and they feel that they, as well as I, feel that African Americans are being targeted and treated unfairly. And here's some final statistics for you. According to the Bureau of Justice, police stops declined 21% to 17% of the total population. So basically only 17, from 2002, 21% of the population was getting stopped by police. Now it's 17%. However, rates of police misconduct have stayed the same. So people are being stopped less, but there's the same amount of police misconduct. And they also only roughly capture 50% of estimated law enforcement homicides because of the UCR and the fact that they don't enforce mandatory reporting. In conclusion, like I said, this is something we need to be concerned about. This is something we need to take action for, and we need to put a stop to this and find a way to get, honestly, more information, because right now we do not have enough resources, we don't have enough time. We're directing everything in other directions, but this needs to be done because people are getting scared, and if people are scared of the people that are supposed to make them safe, how is anybody really going to be safe? Here's my works cited. Thank you.